world-famous Butch and Bob Show.
World famous Butch and Bob Show right here on WIFO 105.5 FM in Jesup, Big Dog Country Radio. Bob, how you doing?
Trying to find my voice.
I know you've been losing it all morning long.
Right.
So, just one ejection from last night's guns versus hoses or hoses versus guns.
That's what Donnie Ray says. One ejection.
One ejection.
No ambulance is needed. So that's a good report.
So everybody pulled through with no problems at all. That's good. Good. Hopefully a lot of toys were brought there to give to the toy drive here in Wayne County. Well, Bob, we got a guest in this morning. Who do we have?
We got Hospital Administrator Joe Roddy in here, but really wanted to talk to him about his experience on the city council. I told him, one of the most interesting stories of this year was that, unfortunately Ray House passed away and the city had to find a replacement, but they couldn't agree on a replacement. They went through a bunch of horse and pony shows, couldn't make a consensus on who they wanted, so the governor had to step in, which was very unusual. But the governor did call Mr. Roddy here, and he's been on the council, several months now?
Finishing up my 4th month.
I just was curious how the experience is gone. I tell everybody, they said, you're good friends with Joe. What'd you tell him? I said, tell him to stay out of that. Don't get involved in politics.
Yeah, well.
You said the governor called, so you felt obligated to.
Well, of course.
So how's the experience been?
I've learned a lot. Learned a lot about government. It's been an interesting experience, to say the least. But learned a lot about how different things affect other things and how government actually works. And quite honestly, for me, it's extremely nerve-wracking. When I go to a meeting, and especially my first meeting, my family will tell you I was just, really, really, really nervous about doing this. Kind of really didn't know anything about it, but the big thing is when you go to those meetings, you could be making decisions and providing input on things that could affect people. And the last thing you want to do is adversely affect people. So it's very humbling. But for me, it was, and it's caused me to be a little nervous about it, to make sure that I do right for the folks.
Well, the last meeting was kind of interesting. Maybe you can explain it more in detail, but the mayor and the commissioner, Tim Caulfield, kind of got into it. I joked they probably need boxing gloves for Christmas, but the ladder truck has been approved. Most people want to see the ladder truck come, but explain what Fireline wanted the city to do. Explain that whole process. You got more information than I do.
Yeah, that meeting, instead of a city council meeting, almost turned to an episode of The Real Housewives for a minute there, and I mean that kind of stuff's got to stop. No personal attacks. That to me is uncalled for. But the ladder truck is for me. It's real simple. I guess it was already settled business before I got there, and that's fine. And the company that's building the truck that's 2 years out wanted an upfront payment. And basically, in exchange for the upfront payment, you were going to get a discount of probably about $120,000, which, if I was doing the math in my head, it was about 3-4%. So you were getting basically, I think they said it was 3.9% interest, and that's kind of an early, basically you're paying the truck early. So in my mind,
but
and again,
going to get money too, right?
Right. Well, here's how it was in my mind. Okay, in my mind, it was twofold. First of all, if I'm going to pay a $1.6 million bill 2 years ahead of time, you're going to give me more than a 3.5-4% discount. That's number one. But their line of thinking was that we'll get the money and we'll pay you interest on that money. And that sounds pretty good. And to get 3.5 to 4% interest 2 years ago would have been a great deal, because interest rates, as everybody knows, were very, very low. Well, now interest rates have spiked. And, I know you can get 6-month, 1-year CDs for 5% or even higher. Now, with that being said, maybe they are giving you the best interest rate possible. On the surface, I say no. But first of all, let's shop that if that's the concept that we want to use, is to be able to take the money, earmark it, put it in an account, and draw interest on it. But if we can get more interest from somewhere, And then if we can get more interest here with a local institution, my goodness, that's a win-win. But if you're going to pay, but I'm going to go back to this, that's something that was really never talked about. If you're going to pay a roughly $6 million bill 2 years before the product is ready, I think a 4% discount is probably very, very low. Forget the interest. You should probably be able to demand a bigger discount. But here's the other factor that wasn't addressed. And I don't know if it's addressed in getting a bond, but what happens if the company gets bought out or the company goes bankrupt over those 2 years? What happens to your money? I'm sure it may be spelled out somewhere. It wasn't, but that wasn't provided to me. And so I just felt the need that was something that could wait to be done.
Well, the mayor said all he did was he called a bank to see what kind of interest they could get here locally, and the bank told me he's going to get a lot more than what they were offering. And Commissioner Cockfield accused him of being the city treasurer and overstepped his bounds. But
I respectfully,
do you think he overstepped his bounds?
No, I respectfully disagree with that because the city treasurer makes the decision. However, as the mayor or a council person, to provide input and provide valuable input in the decision-making process is not only appropriate, it's good business. Look.
It just seems like Ralph was looking out for the best interest of the citizens of Jesup by providing, say, here's the interest rate we can get. I've checked into it. He didn't make a decision. He just gave input. He just gave information.
And when I immediately asked what the interest rate was before, I knew when they I think it was like 3.8 or 3. I knew right then and there what you see, what's advertised that you could potentially do better. Due diligence to me by anyone, sitting within a group, especially on the city council, is never a bad thing. It's how we react to that due diligence. If the mayor banged the gavel and said, by golly, we can get 4% interest and we need to do this, or we can get 5% and we need to do this right now, then that's a different story. But, providing input was not functioning as the city treasurer.
And the other issue you've been on from day one is the SPLOST 5 funding.
Yes.
That was controversial as well. Commissioner Cockfield says he's going to campaign against it, but, most people that know anything about SPLOST or eSPLOST, it's pretty much a no-brainer. Millions of dollars come in. Money's desperately needed. Like I said, Mayor Scriven, Jason Weaver, and Mayor Voden, Greg Rorschach said, look, without SPLOST, those two cities really don't function. So why do you think there was so much disagreement about the SPLOST funds?
I don't know. Again, unfortunately, I came in kind of after the process. I can only speak for Joe, okay? And this is how Joe looked at the SPLOST, okay?
Are you talking about yourself in the third person?
I am.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Good one. This is the way I looked at the SPLOST. And, I was accused of having a conflict of interest and, to try to get my vote thrown away, all that nonsense. And I probably didn't do a good enough job of articulating why I felt the way I did. And I was very steadfast, Bob. You know that from day one, why the SPLOST was important. Here's why the SPLOST was important as Joe Arati, representing District 5 City Council person. First of all, we all know that 33% of the SPLOST comes from outside this county, okay?
Visitors to Wayne County.
Right. So there's 1/3 of the bill being paid by outside residents county. Number two, everybody shares in that. Everybody shares in that cost. Number three, the tax burden. That helps to create more of a level field as far as the tax burden goes to all the citizens of our community. Now, okay, with that being said, that's established. Let's look at all these different projects and things that were going to be done. These are all wonderful projects that everybody's put together. Playground in Scriven, equipment for the city of Odom to do some water and sewer drainage, the city of Jesup, police cars, beautification, the county with the courthouse, which is going to be wonderful, and the equestrian center and our community center, all wonderful things. But to vote against it from a city perspective, in my opinion, would be very irresponsible to the citizens of the city of Jesup, and let me tell you why. In doing my research and going through these things, the city of Jesup financed their wastewater treatment facility. The new wastewater treatment facility was financed through what they call a JIFO loan, a very low-interest loan, to pay that debt off. That debt is approximately $64,000 a month. That debt is being serviced each month by SPLOST proceeds. So, if Councilman Joe Iorati in District 5 voted against the SPLOST, okay, forget all the things, the wonderful projects for community as a whole, and remember, citizens of the city of Jesup also are citizens of Wayne County. Okay, we'll put that to the side. But for the city of Jesup, that's $64,000 a month, which comes up to roughly, I think it was $768,000. My math is close. Well, how are you going to pay for that? Well, you're going to pay for it one of two ways with no SPLOST money. Either you're going to increase a tax to the people who pay taxes in the city of Jesup, or you're going to have to ask your department managers to cut the budget by roughly $750,000. Okay? I did not think that was the right thing to do, okay? And I also asked and heard from members of my constituency. I asked some of them that I knew what their opinion was, and I actually had a few people call me and tell me what they thought about it, okay? So it was not only what I was thinking, but what I was hearing from the folks that I represent. It was a no-brainer to me, okay? Now, if that's a conflict of interest with that thought process, then so be it.
Well, the citizens of Jesup and Wayne County has shown over the last 20 years that they feel that the SPLOST and the E-SPLOST is a very good way to fund projects here in the cities, in the county, and for the school system. And it's been going on now for a generation, folks wanting to do that. It is the most fair tax. And just because you don't get your way on a lot of stuff, like certain people are doing, or want to campaign against it, is against, to me, the wishes of the probably 99% of the leaders in Wayne County and probably most of the citizens of Wayne County.
Yeah, and
they've shown that.
Right, and we didn't even get into, that's just the here now today. The financing for the wastewater treatment facility, that's immediate. Now, if you can't order new police cars, order a fire truck, build a building, well, those things are eventually going to have to be done, okay? But year 2, year 3, year 4, that's going to get saddled onto the taxpayers. But that would have been immediate, and I just felt like that wasn't a road. Look, everybody, the 3 municipalities in the county, I'm sure everybody would have liked to have gotten a little bit more. Okay, I'm sure everyone would like to look at things differently, but we're not sitting at a linear table. We're sitting at a circular table, which means we all have to work together. Okay, and this is part of sitting in the sandbox. The old adage, sit in the sandbox and working together, and kind of compromising, but understanding that what's good for the municipalities is good for the county, and what's good for the county is good for the municipalities, because the people I represent are going to benefit from projects from the city and the county.
Sandbox, I mean, we all know that growing up, that, if you had one kid in the sandbox who didn't get his way, he got his dump truck and went home.
Right.
But we all got to work together.
We all got to work together.
Well, what's funny to me is your vote wasn't a conflict of interest when it was in the minority.
Of course.
So don't you think that was just dirty pull, what they tried to do?
Sure was. It was disappointing. It was disappointing for me.
Luckily, the former mayor, Dave Earl Keith, was there to explain that there was a conflict of interest.
It's disappointing, and you know what it was, Bob. It was to get my vote disqualified, so it would be a 3-2 vote, and then the motion dies. Right. And that's something that I hope it gets encouraged, that they look at the city charter and address that, hey, if there's enough folks to have a meeting, then majority rules. I hope that gets looked at. Now, honestly, I don't know all the ins and outs. There may be a real reason why you can't do that. But I think at a minimum it needs to be looked at.
Well, again, I appreciate you coming and talk about that, but I really want to talk about, said you've been my color man for a long time, so I want to appreciate everything you do. I joke all the time. I said I get lost on Cherry Street, so you're the itinerary man. You get us to the stadium, you decide we're going to eat, but it's been a lot of fun. How long you been doing that with us?
My first season, I believe, was 2012, so this was Season 12. So I just finished my 12th season. I had to count them.
He had to take his shoes off.
I had to take my shoes off. I had to count it up.
But it's been a lot of fun.
It's been a lot of fun. Now, you like where we eat until I take us somewhere that's bad, and I got a feeling then there'll be a revolt.
Well, you kind of know what he likes now, Joe, so you can always
That's a good thing about Bob. Bob's really not picky. Bob, if I say, we're going to get barbecue, or we're going to get this, he's like, okay, let's go.
As long as it's good food, it doesn't matter.
But it's been really good.
But it's been fun. Good season the last couple of years. Yeah. And it's always more fun when you win.
It is a lot more fun than we win. Coach Shaw's really done a good job.
Yes, he has.
Really done a good job. The staff.
Yep.
Numbers are up. Kids seem to be enjoying themselves. There's a lot of hard work. And you can see it in the weight room and emphasis on academics. You can really see those things, which is great. I hope now that we take it to the next level, and we're in dire need of upgrading our facilities, weight room, the stadium. I know the SPLOS came through, and a lot of those things were talked about. I hope those come through because as we move forward, we've seen the facilities teams we're playing. Perry has. Ware County's about to build a $7 million brand new indoor facility.
Yeah.
We saw what Warner Robins has.
And not only that, is smaller towns.
Correct.
Blackshear, Baxley, Burke, Hazelhurst, all have better facilities than we do. So you take a look at it and talk to them. How did y'all do it? And I know if they can do it, we can do it. And athletics is education.
Appling is doing a huge. They put their turf down in their field, and now they're doing a huge facilities upgrade here in the next year. So I mean, it's time. It's things get dated and we've outgrown some of them. So it's time to make that commitment, and the kids deserve it.
Another fun point about Friday night is the way more hospital offense, defense players the game. You get to give those plaques out on Monday. Explain how kids just enjoy it. It doesn't seem like much, but
it's one of the most.
Joy on their faces
it's one of the best things I get to do. Is to go. It's funny. The word's kind of out. When we first started doing the award, they call them down in the office, and they would think they were in trouble, and they would see me, and they'd be like, "Oh, I'm not in trouble." And I would always say, "Did you do something that you thought you were in trouble?" No, Mr. Joe, I didn't do anything in trouble. But now they kind of some of the players they come and you present them the award, and we take their picture, and I get to talk to some of these young men for a couple of minutes before they head back, and it really is. I enjoy being able to do that, to present it to those young men so much, and they really appreciate it. And now that we've been doing it for so long, I had a former player tell me during last season that he still has his 2 plaques hanging up on his wall.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
That is great. Yeah, people love that recognition.
Yeah, and they deserve it. These kids. It's all athletics now. It's not we show up in late July and we leave. I mean, these kids are making commitments year round, whether it be baseball, basketball, football. I mean, football, they're out there running drills, 97-degree heat in the middle of July. During summer workouts. So I mean, there's a lot to be said for these young men and ladies who make that year-round commitment.
You're a UGA graduate, big Georgia football fan. Big game this weekend. Your thoughts on the big game?
Boy, Bob, we never play good against them in Atlanta. That's the only problem. I shouldn't say don't play well. Whenever we play in that dome, whether it be the old Georgia Dome or the Mercedes-Benz Dome, we always have a problem coming out with a W. And I think the most important takeaway, it's going to be a good game, but I think as a proud Georgia alum and a fan, I think we need to kind of take a look at what's going on. 43-1 in the last 44 games, back-to-back national championships, and no matter what happens this weekend, be appreciative of what's going on, because this is something that's unthinkable.
Well, watching the show last night, they keep saying that if Georgia loses, there's a good possibility they don't even make the playoffs. I just can't see how they're going to drop Georgia from 1-4 when they dropped Ohio State only down to 6 after they lost to Michigan. So what's your thoughts on that? Say we lose by a field goal.
I think it's going to be tough for Georgia to get in for a lot of different reasons. I think it's like kind of when Alabama was doing their thing. I mean, you got to wonder if there's a little Georgia fatigue. I mean, it's not fair, but it's reality. A little Georgia fatigue. How much do they weight conference championships? Because the problem is with Georgia is Texas, because even though Georgia and Texas haven't played each other, if Texas wins their conference championship and Alabama wins their conference championship, and let's say Florida State loses, I could see it being Michigan, Washington, Texas, and Alabama. See, that's the problem you're going to run into, because if you're going to, again, and Georgia could be in it, I just think it becomes real muddy, because Texas fans are going to say, look, Georgia lost to Alabama on a neutral site. We beat Alabama at their place, and we're a conference champion. I mean, I think Georgia's better. I think the adage should be, I don't care what you won, who you didn't win. If Georgia played Texas right now on a neutral field, who would you take?
Well, Georgia controls their own destiny. They just got to win. Right. Take all this away. They just got to win. They're favored right now by 5. Still 5.5, Bob?
They moved up to 6.
They got to move up to 6.
Up.
And
somebody must be putting a pile of money on Georgia. I can figure.
Yeah, it's
so,
gonna. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens, and eventually, we win 29 games in a row with that schedule. Eventually,
I just can't see, if you look at Georgia's resume, like I said, 2-time defending champions. If they're not one of the best 4 teams, even if they lose by a field goal, I'll be shocked if they don't get in.
Well, here's another question for you. So Oregon,
I'd say sorry FSU. You played sorry ACC.
You're right. And again, there's all these human variables that you and I can look at the same thing and make 2 different arguments and both make points. The question is going to be, it could be something like this, and maybe I'm biased. If it's the 4th spot and I'm between Georgia and Oregon, well, I'm going to say, look, Georgia beat them by 52 points last year. Okay, there's no way Georgia's 52 points worse or they're 52 points better. So I know Georgia's better than that. Now, someone else may not look at that, may say that's last year. Okay? So,
does Oregon get in with a win Friday night? And do they jump Washington and get in?
I think they will, but it depends what else happens. Is it between Alabama and Oregon with 1 loss, and Alabama makes an argument? Alabama can say, look, you played SEC school last year. Georgia beat you by 50 points. Realize that now. I know that was last year and things are different, but they beat the brakes off that team last year. Bad.
I just think most people believe the SEC is the strongest conference, and like I said, since the playoffs began, the SEC champion has never been denied. So I think if Alabama wins, they're going to get an invitation, but I still think Georgia's going to get in as well, and somebody else is going to get left out. That's just
both teams were undefeated. If Alabama wouldn't have lost to Texas, I think it would be a moot point. I think the loser would be in.
Right.
I think it muddies I can't believe how many undefeated teams are still left.
Right. It is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But next year we won't have to worry about this.
Right. Well, that's that.
But that's next year.
But see, and that's going to be interesting next year. The 12 teams. Well, now you have 12 teams getting in, but do you want to play in a conference championship game if you're like number 9?
Well, teams 13 and 14 are going to be upset next year, so
right.
But that's how it goes.
But guess what? If you're number 13 or 14, come on.
I still think if Georgia gets their team healthy, they're going to be fine. Carson Beck gets better and better. Hopefully he gets an invite to New York. He's been kind of under the radar.
I don't think he's going to get there.
I tell you, he's been fun to watch.
He has. It's going to be real interesting to see, how all that plays out on Saturday. It's going to be a heck of a game, that's for sure. It's one of those games that you can be real happy that you don't have to play for about 3 or 4 weeks, because that game's going to be physical. It's going to be nasty. I read something last night, Bob, that said that Georgia had the most physical, chippiest, nastiest practice that they had all season last night. Because Bloody Tuesday is when they put the pads on and get after it.
Your other hospital administrator, anything for the hospital we need to know about? How's things going? Christmas time.
Christmas time. We pretty much nothing since our last conversation. Kind of the same. Still doing more and more robotic surgery, and we're excited about where we are and where the future's going. And Cancer Center, unfortunately, staying busy. We'd love to find a cure for that awful disease and close that building tomorrow. But if folks are sick, we're glad that we have that here, and we're able to provide that service.
Always good to see you, my friend. Appreciate you being my color man all these years.
Appreciate it, gentlemen. Butch, thanks, as always.
Take care. All right. 105.5 FM in Jesup, Big Dog Country Radio, WIFO, the world-famous Butch and Bob Show here on WIFO, brought to you by Van's Barbecue, First Southern Bank, Murphy Builder Supply, O'Quinn & Associates, and Connection Coffee and Creamery.